Why does Sasuke's Rinnegan have 6 Tomoe? It is the only Rinnegan in the series that has Tomoe at all. The only other dojutsu that is not a base Sharingan that has those loose Tomoe is gonna be the Rinne Sharingan, and that's not the same thing as a Rinnegan. Today the video is gonna be about the peculiarities of Sasuke's Rinnegan and why it may just be the most powerful Rinnegan in the verse. First we have to understand what the 6 Tomoe in Sasuke's Rinnegan grant Sasuke in terms of powers. Because yeah, one of the reasons why Kishimoto decided to give Sasuke 6 Tomoe was obviously so that his Rinnegan looks distinct from Madara's, and because the 6 Tomoe around the Rinnegan also look very aesthetic. But obviously there are going to be in-universe repercussions for Sasuke's Tomoes there. The most obvious thing we know that additional Tomoe grant the user of a Sharingan, or in this case a Rinnegan, is a better reaction time and a better capacity to read the opponent's movements. We see this extremely clearly in the first Naruto vs Sasuke fight in the Final Valley, when Sasuke is getting absolutely demolished by Naruto enhanced by the Nine Tails' chakra and he had 2 Tomoe, but when he awakens a 3rd Tomoe of the Sharingan, he starts to read Naruto's movements perfectly and counter him with just taijutsu. The difference in strength one single Tomoe granted Sasuke in that fight was absurd, and that was just a 3 Tomoe Sharingan evolving from a 2 Tomoe Sharingan. Imagine what 6 Tomoe on a Rinnegan, which is the evolution of an eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, would grant the user. Sasuke was using his 6 Tomoe Rinnegan to read Jubidara's movements extremely well, and after that, Sasuke even bisects Madara in half. Now, contrary to popular belief, Sasuke does not blitz Madara on that occasion. Madara literally sees Sasuke coming towards him and remarks that Sasuke is very fast, but to be fair, Madara wasn't really concerned with blocking Sasuke's attack if he knew he was just gonna cut Madara in half, because Madara knew he could regenerate from that, and his prime concern at that point was to Kamui himself and get the 2nd Rinnegan from Obito, who was inside the Kamui dimension. However, Madara remarking that Sasuke was extremely fast is already very interesting, and it really tells that Sasuke was indeed fast, because just a few minutes before, Madara was fighting against 8th Gate Guy using his most powerful and fastest jutsu, the Night Guy, a jutsu that when he used, he was moving so fast, he was literally bending space-time through sheer speed. And yes, Madara says he's bending space, but if you bend space, you are bending time. Those two things are connected, so Guy was bending space-time if the physics of the Naruto universe are in any way similar to our universe. So Madara saying Sasuke was fast there is a big deal, and we already knew Sasuke was fast, but was Sasuke that fast to impress 10 Tails Madara, who was fighting against 8 Gates Guy, to fight alongside Sage of Six Paths Naruto, who is faster than KCM2 Naruto, who is faster than KCM1 Naruto, who was faster than the Raikage, who was said to be the fastest shinobi alive during the entire Naruto Shippuden era. Now, you may say that Sage of Six Paths Naruto was actually faster than Sasuke, and I think that's probably fair to assume, even though they always look extremely relative to each other in terms of speed, but they are at least very close to each other, and Sasuke was not that fast, because one thing we know for certain is that Naruto certainly gets a lot faster with Sage of Six Paths Senjutsu combined with his Nine Tails' chakra, especially when he uses his KCM mode. And what I'm getting at here is, did the Rinnegan grant Sasuke greater speed? Well, it's either that or just a raw chakra that the Sage of Six Paths gave to Sasuke and created the moon seal on his left hand. Because before Sasuke got the Rinnegan, EMS Sasuke himself was fighting against an eyeless Madara Uchiha that wasn't yet the Jinchuriki of the 10 Tails, and yeah, he was pressing Madara alright, but they seemed very much equal in speed. And I don't have to tell you that blind Madara without the 10 Tails sealed inside of him is gonna be weaker and slower than 10 Tails Madara with 1 Rinnegan. So obviously Sasuke had a massive boost in speed. If Rinnegan Sasuke was fighting against a blind Madara, he would have just blitzed him completely. So yeah, it's either the Rinnegan or just Hagoromo's chakra making Sasuke faster. Because between that clash that Sasuke had with blind Madara to Sasuke getting the Rinnegan and being relative, if not faster than 10 Tails Madara, the only thing that happens to Sasuke that could have granted him greater speed was his encounter with Hagoromo, where he got the Rinnegan and his chakra with a moon seal. And it's safe to assume it was the Rinnegan that amped Sasuke's speed in this particular situation. The 6 Stone Tomoe of Sasuke's Rinnegan certainly had something to do with it. If 3 Tomoe back in the day in Naruto Part 1 were able to give Sasuke that much of an amp, perhaps not regarding Sasuke's speed back then, but certainly his reaction time. Now, with 6 Tomoe in a more powerful dojutsu, that's probably gonna give Sasuke even more speed, and obviously more reaction time as well. Because there's the thing, there is a precedent for characters becoming stronger in terms of physical capabilities and also faster just because they get a Rinnegan, mainly with Obito Uchiha. Orange Mask Obito was pretty powerful, don't get me wrong, but White Mask Obito / War Arc Obito is just on a completely different level. He's able to keep up with Might Guy, Kakashi, Killer Bee, and KCM Naruto at the same time. Sure, he got tagged a couple of times, but he only got tagged when Kakashi used Kamui to counter his own Kamui. So it wasn't as though Obito was getting speed blitzed or anything like that. And when we go back to Orange Mask Obito, first he gets tagged by Konan, and yeah, he kind of underestimated her, but still, it's just Konan, and Obito gets tagged even before Konan uses the Paper Bomb Ocean. Compare Konan to those 4 guys I just mentioned, it's nothing. And he also loses an arm to Fu and Tarune fighting against him as a duo. Now, Fu and Tarune are kind of cool characters from the root Abu, and they have very cool abilities, but they don't compare to Naruto, Kakashi, Guy, and Killer Bee, do they? It's clear that the Rinnegan gives Obito a boost, general strength, as well as speed, and also overall chakra reserves, because it seems like Obito has endless chakra in the War Arc. And bear in mind, the Rinnegan that Obito got didn't have Tomoe at all. Sasuke's Rinnegan has 6 of them. So one can definitely assume that 6 Tomoe are gonna give Sasuke even more speed, strength, power, and everything else. However, there is an issue from a narrative standpoint, because Sasuke has only 1 Rinnegan, and he's fighting against Madara, who obviously is gonna end up having 2 Rinnegan. In the beginning of the fight, Madara only has 1, but then he gets both Rinnegan, casts Infinite Tsukuyomi, there's all that cool stuff, until Kage and Black Setsu retcon the story, the worst writing decision in fiction. But anyways, Obito tells Sakura when they are in the Kamui dimension and Sakura is hesitating to destroy Obito's Rinnegan that he even tried to implant the second Madara Rinnegan, but the power was simply too much and he couldn't handle it. He says that when you're using both Rinnegan together, the power grows exponentially. They become far more powerful than the sum of their powers individually. And that's why when Madara gets the second Rinnegan, it's that scary situation. Oh my god, what are we going to do? But Sasuke only awakens 1 Rinnegan, so technically he's not gonna have that boost in power that Madara is going to have when he gets both Rinnegan. And that's the thing, he doesn't have 2 Rinnegan, but he has 1 6 Tomoe Rinnegan that you could probably assume is gonna be as powerful as 2 Rinnegan put together, roughly speaking, I would say, at least. So Sasuke's Rinnegan having the Tomoe there is a good narrative justification to say why Sasuke would be close to Madara's level there and able to fight against him at all. Now, one thing that is not granted by the Tomoe is going to be Amenotejikara. Some people may assume that because, well, it's Sasuke's unique Rinnegan ability, right? But for one, we actually see Sasuke using Amenotejikara in the Naruto Gaiden arc without the Tomoe on his Rinnegan. And 2, the original Awakeners of the Rinnegan get an original ability that nobody else can use, even if you may get that person's Rinnegan onto themselves. Hagoromo had Creation of All Things, Madara had Limbo, and Sasuke had Amenotejikara. So the Tomoe don't grant that. That's granted by Sasuke having awakened a Rinnegan originally. Another thing that the Rinnegan Tomoe might grant Sasuke, and pay attention to me saying might here, is the possibility of Sasuke using his Mangekyou Sharingan abilities without having to deactivate the Rinnegan and use his EMS instead. And why is this debatable? We never get confirmation as to whether or not a Rinnegan user can use their Mangekyou Sharingan abilities without deactivating the Rinnegan, but we have a few clues here and there. Now you may say, what? What are you talking about, Daigo? We see Madara using his Susanoo a billion times with the Rinnegan, but the Susanoo is an exception because Madara can literally use his Susanoo without eyes whatsoever, and we can also see that Itachi can use his Susanoo in the fight against Sasuke, for instance, when he was already blind. So the Susanoo is an ability that you need to awaken it through your Mangekyou Sharingan, but once you do so, you don't even need your Mangekyou to use it. But the thing is, we never see anybody using a Mangekyou Sharingan ability with the Rinnegan before Sasuke awakens his Rinnegan, with the exception of the the Susanoo, of course. Even though Nagato, for example, had Madara's Rinnegan his entire life, he never used Madara's Mangekyou abilities and not even the Susanoo. But that makes sense. Just like you need to awaken the Mangekyou Sharingan in both eyes to use the Susanoo, someone that gets implanted eyes cannot use the Susanoo because they never awakened those eyes. The same thing goes for Obito when he gets Madara's Rinnegan. He never uses any Mangekyou abilities that Madara may have, and obviously he couldn't even use the Susanoo here. First because, just like in Nagato's case, he didn't awaken the eyes that could use the Susanoo, and also because he only had one Rinnegan anyway. And then, Madara himself doesn't use his base Mangekyou Sharingan abilities with the Rinnegan. None of them do. Maybe Nagato didn't even know he had access to those abilities because he didn't know that the Rinnegan belonged to Madara to begin with, but Obito certainly did, and maybe he just didn't use the abilities because he wouldn't be as proficient with them. But Madara, there isn't really much of an excuse, is there? Why would Madara not want to use his Mangekyou abilities? Even if he's using the Rinnegan, I'm pretty sure Mangekyou abilities would be pretty useful, at least in a couple of situations during the war arc when he was in Edo Tensei, because he couldn't use Limbo, for example. He could only do that after he got revived by Rinne Tensei. But then we come to another problem, and this is more out of universe, I would say, because Madara does not use his Mangekyou Sharingan abilities at all in the entire series, even when he only had the Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, particularly in the Madara vs. Hashirama flashback fight. If there's a situation where Madara would have to use the full extent of his powers, that's gonna be in the final battle against Hashirama Senju, isn't it? I love that fight to death. It's one of my favorite fights in the entire Naruto series, but Madara not using the Mangekyou Sharingan abilities there seems like a wasted opportunity. And yes, we do not see the full fight on screen. Most of it actually is off screen, so we can probably assume Madara would have used his Mangekyou abilities when we weren't watching, but that's kind of a cop-out, and it's just more likely that Kishimoto chose not to introduce any other abilities to make Madara even more broken and quote-unquote difficult to deal with in the narrative. He was already very complicated to deal with in terms of how strong he got without two additional OP Mangekyou Sharingan abilities, so I think Kishimoto just decided to kinda forget about that, bro. And this carries on to the war arc, and Madara doesn't use anything with his Rinnegan, but whatever the out-of-universe explanation may be, what counts is that Madara does not use Mangekyou Sharingan abilities with his Rinnegan activated. As a matter of fact, he seems to be unable to even use regular Sharingan abilities with his Rinnegan activated, because when he is fighting against the 5 Kage, and one of Madara's Wood Clone Susanoo's grabs the right Kage, he wants to put the right Kage under a Genjutsu, but he has to revert his Rinnegan back to his Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan to cast a Genjutsu. And that's explicitly shown, which kind of implies he wouldn't be able to do that with his Rinnegan. And that wasn't even the Mangekyou ability, it was just basic Genjutsu. Yeah, it was a Genjutsu cast with the Mangekyou, but still, it wasn't something special like Amaterasu or Tsukiyomi or Kamui, something that only the Mangekyou could do. And because a basic Genjutsu needed the EMS to be casted, reverting the Rinnegan back, it makes me think, do all Sharingan abilities cease to work when you get the Rinnegan? Such as Genjutsu, such as the precognition the Sharingan gives you, and obviously such as the Mangekyou Sharingan abilities? Because if that's the case, then the Rinnegan is kinda garbage, man. I mean, obviously not. You know what I mean though, right? A base Sharingan already has some very good capabilities, especially when it comes to reading the opponent's movements, and the Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan is obviously a step beyond that. But if Madara can't cast a freaking Genjutsu without reverting the Rinnegan back to his EMS, damn, does that mean that when Madara is using the Rinnegan there during the entire war arc, he doesn't have the Sharingan precognition, and he was still casually soloing the 5 Kage and reacting to a blitz attempt by KCM2 casually, deflecting the mini Bijudama as if he was walking on the park? That would be pretty crazy, I'm not gonna lie. And also we get the Edo Tensei Jinchuriki, which each have one Rinnegan and one Sharingan. Now obviously the Rinnegan is so that Obito can control them directly, but the Sharingan is for them to have better reaction time. So did Obito just gave them a Sharingan each so they would have better reaction even though they already had a Rinnegan? Does that mean the Rinnegan truly does not give the precognition that the Sharingan would? Now maybe in not? Because obviously those eyes are projections that the user of the Rinnegan does so that they can become paths. It's the exact same thing Nagato did to the Paths of Pain. They didn't have a Rinnegan pair each. Those were projections of the Rinnegan that Nagato used so that he could use the Paths abilities through his Paths of Pain. So it's likely that the Rinnegan and Obito's Sharingan, which was on his right eye, were projected onto the Jinchuriki because the Sharingan eye on the Jinchuriki are clearly Edo eyes because they have the black part instead of it being white. So they obviously weren't implanted, but they couldn't use Kamui either. And that would be fair because obviously each Path of Pain wasn't able to use the full capabilities of the Rinnegan. And I would imagine that the same thing would apply when Obito is projecting his Sharingan onto the other paths. This is most definitely an ability of the outer path, a path that nobody really talks about and that only the original Rinnegan user can access. It's the path capable of summoning the Geromazo, controlling the other 6 paths, projecting the power of his eyes onto the paths themselves, and also using the Rinne Tensei Jutsu. And because Obito tried to implant Madara's second Rinnegan onto himself, he at least believed that 2 Rinnegan would be better than one Mangekyou that he had access to Kamui with and another Rinnegan. And the thing is, for Obito to believe that a second Rinnegan would be better than his Kamui, which is the ability he's been spamming ever since he was 13 years old, and the ability that alone made him one of the most powerful characters in the verse, would be worse than having 2 Rinnegan, leads me to think that no, the Rinnegan user is not going to lose the Sharingan precognition when he has the Rinnegan activated. And to prove that, we can take a look at Edo Tensei Nagato. Now, even though Nagato got his rejuvenated appearance back by draining Killer Bee's chakra, Nagato himself has never been a speedster, especially on his real body. Yes, he had a lot of powers, but nothing really indicates he's extremely fast. But he was very easily reacting to KCM, Naruto, and Killer Bee, so much so that he was going to kill them both in about 2 pages of the manga, if not for Itachi catching Nagato from behind after blinding the Rinnegans that were looking around, making sure he wouldn't be surrounded. So Nagato wasn't even blitzed by Itachi there, he was just caught off guard. But reacting to Naruto in KC1 and Killer Bee is not a bad feat at all in terms of perception to a guy that's not extremely fast. Which leads me to believe that yeah, Nagato was making use of the Rinnegan / Sharingan's precognition reaction capabilities there that he may not even know he possessed. But when it comes to the other Sharingan and Mangekyou Sharingan abilities, yeah, it's likely that the Rinnegan simply couldn't use them and you would have to revert the eye back to the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan to cast them. But now going back to Sasuke's 6 Tomoe Rinnegan, we clearly see Sasuke's Rinnegan eye crying a tear of blood and using Amaterasu against Kaguya, and then using that Amaterasu again against Naruto when they were both very tired in the Valley of the End there in their final fight. We clearly see Sasuke using his Amaterasu from his Rinnegan without him having to revert it back to the EMS, and that actually happens a few times after Sasuke gets the Rinnegan. So it is likely that the Tomoe on his Rinnegan allow him to do that, which is a big advantage. You're not turning off your most powerful eye in order to cast another ability. Another power the Tomoe gives Sasuke is the ability to hop between dimensions. And yeah, this happens in Naruto Gaiden, so take it with a grain of salt. But Sasuke uses that capability, which he probably finds out between the end of the Naruto series and the beginning of Boruto, to hop between dimensions, investigate the Kaguya clan, and when he uses that ability too much, the Tomoe actually fade away from his Rinnegan, nerfing Sasuke essentially. And when he is in that state, Sasuke is no longer able to hop through dimensions. Now, that ability would have been very useful in the fight against Kaguya there because she was hopping through dimensions a lot. Bro certainly made Obito have to bleed to death almost in order to combo him out of that desert dimension. But that's okay, I guess you could say Sasuke didn't know everything about his Rinnegan because he got it like 15 minutes ago or something. And because Kage is hopping through dimensions with her Rinne Sharingan, which also have Tomoe, but the Rinne Sharingan has 9 Tomoe, it's fair to assume, I suppose, that the 6 Tomoe on Sasuke's Rinnegan would have a similar, yet not exactly the same capability, because Kaguya can literally just kind of swap the dimension entirely with a lot of people around her, while Sasuke opens a portal, kinda like Kamui, and then he just walks into the portal with whoever wants to walk with him. It's not not as much combat oriented, it's just so that Sasuke can teleport between dimensions. It's a plot device that they use in Boruto, but yeah, whatever. But why is Sasuke the different dude? Why does he get 6 Tomoe on his Rinnegan and nobody else does in the entire verse? Not even Hagoromo himself had Tomoe in his Rinnegan. Well, only 3 people awakened the Rinnegan: Hagoromo, Madara, and Sasuke, so we don't exactly have a major sample size here to evaluate. Oh, this was a very different situation. But it appears, at least, that the regular Rinnegan would not have Tomoe, so why does Sasuke's have? Well, the only thing that's really weird about Sasuke's awakening is the situation when it happens. Sasuke's pretty much dying from Madara's stab wound to the heart, and then he is transported to this weird realm where Hagoromo himself appears to him and Naruto to give them powers. Usually you would have to collect chakra from the other Asha reincarnate and wait for the chakras to mingle so that you can awaken the Rinnegan yourself if you are a ninja reincarnate. And yeah, Sasuke still gets Hashirama cells, so technically he does get chakra from an Asha reincarnate, because when Kabuto is healing Sasuke from Madara's stab wound, he tells Karen and the others there that he gave some Hashirama cells to Sasuke to heal him. Very convenient. The problem is, you have to wait a long time after you get the Ashura chakra in order for your chakras to coalesce together and finally awake the Rinnegan. Madara got a piece of Hashirama's flesh during their fight in the Valley of the End, when they're at most at their mid-30s, and he only awakens the Rinnegan when he is in his mid-80s to early 90s. We don't know exactly how old Madara was there when he awakened the Rinnegan, but he was very old, so it takes a long time to say the least. However, Sasuke awakens the Rinnegan a few minutes at most after he gets Hashirama cells from Kabuto. So what I think Hagoromo did there in that weird realm where he met Sasuke and Naruto was kind of a cheat code. He hastened the awakening of Sasuke's Rinnegan by connecting and giving his own chakra to Sasuke and empower that connection with the Ashura chakra already boiling up within Sasuke to make the Rinnegan finally appear, but because he had to make things really fast, he could only do that to one Rinnegan. But on top of Hagoromo mixing up Ashura's chakra with Sasuke's Indra chakra much faster, he also gave Sasuke some of his own original Sage of Six Paths chakra, the original bearer of the Rinnegan, because essentially what the Indra Ashura chakras are doing in order to awaken the Rinnegan is to mimic the chakra of the Sage of Six Paths. But if you're getting the chakra from Hagoromo himself, then that's gonna be even better, right? Because you get the original, and that's why that Rinnegan is so much more empowered with a 6 Tomoe, because it's getting Ashura, Indra, and Hagoromo's chakras. But because Hagoromo had to hasten the awakening of the Rinnegan because of the situation they were in there in the war, and because Hagoromo himself wouldn't have that much time in the realm of the living, Sasuke only awakened the Rinnegan in one eye, but it was the most powerful Rinnegan ever awakened. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Also ring those notifications because they help me out a lot when you guys see the videos early, and you guys also get the videos much more frequently if you do ring the bell. Watch this other video right here, it's also very good, and thank you so much for watching, guys.